Thanks to being put on the entity list by Donald Trump, Huawei is not allowed to use Google Play services. And that is a huge blow to Huawei in almost every market barring China. Now, how has Huawei tried to compensate for this handicap? Let's find out in today's video. Hey guys, Ash here from C4eTech, and if you do end up liking what you see here, subscribe, turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Let's now get started. So this here is the Mate 40 Pro's box, co-engineered with Leica. The ring there to the top indicates the design language, the space ring, we'll get to it in a bit. The sides are pretty much your traditional affair, nothing sticks out. This is the 8256 variant. Let's open up the box. We are greeted by the Mate 40 Pro. Removing the plastic, that's the space ring. It's a little different from what Huawei went with on the Mate 30 Pro. But now let's peel the screen protector off. And before we get to the Mate 40 Pro, let's take a quick look at the other box contents. This black insert houses a SIM ejector tool, soft case, which is a positive since I'm sure you'd have already noticed the fingerprints that the Mate 40 Pro started to pick up. Next, we have a USB Type-C cable, and that's followed by the EarPods. Okay, not really. But hey, Apple does not include them in the box anymore and Huawei does, and I think that's a joke somewhere in there. But anyways, moving on, we have a supercharger. This is 66 watts, 1 watt overcompeting tech from the likes of Oppo and OnePlus. So that's pretty much it for the box contents. The Mate 40 Pro is an absolutely gorgeous phone. Huawei's done very well with the build. We have a glass sandwich design with a metal frame. This here's the space ring and it houses the cameras. While it's true that this is a camera bump, the ring design ensures that the phone doesn't rock when put on a table and it still remains easy to type on. The Mate 40 Pro retains the IP68 water and dust resistance, which has become a must-have for a proper full-fledged flagship these days. Now the back here has a mirror-like finish. Glossy, so it is prone to fingerprints and smudges. The silver variant, on the other hand, it has a matte finish. That's the one I actually prefer. But the Mate 40 Pro, it's also available in more flamboyant colors, but those are limited to China. Now, no matter which color you end up getting, this phone feels very slick in hand, which is quite surprising since it's neither slim nor light. How Huawei has managed to do this is by curving the phone at the edges. We have a 3D glass back, it's curving on all four sides. The front has a steep 88-degree curve. This means the frame is so thin at the sides, which gives us an illusion of super sleekness. In fact, the metal side is so thin that Huawei had to make it a little larger around the power and volume keys to accommodate them. And yes, the volume rockers are back, but if you're one of the few who've gotten used to the Mate 30 Pro way of doing things, the virtual volume keys, they still work. You can double tap and adjust the volume. So the power and volume keys are present to the right, secondary mic, IR blaster, and secondary speaker are up top. There's nothing to the left. Again, notice the thin metal strip here. To the bottom, we have a SIM tray, Type-C port, primary mic, and the primary speaker. Now the speakers, they are pretty loud, and unlike with some phones, the stereo output doesn't seem lopsided. Both speakers seem to fire equally well. The SIM tray, it's got support for 2 SIM cards or 1 SIM and a nano memory card. Now that's Huawei's proprietary memory expansion option. Huawei also lets us choose between a physical and eSIM for the second SIM option. So technically you can go SIM plus eSIM plus nano memory if you so desire. Now coming back to the sleekness, another reason for it, the wow factor here, it's the display. This is a 6.76-inch OLED panel. Huawei calls it Horizon display. Its resolution is irregular, but it's almost Quad HD, so it's quite crisp with a pixel density of over 450 pixels per inch. The colors are great. This panel supports HDR10, so it does have the capability to get super bright, and that means outdoor legibility, it's a non-issue. Being an OLED panel, the fingerprint scanner is located under the display. It's pretty responsive, just like the other biometric option, Face Unlock. Talking about which, this OLED panel has quite a large pill-shaped cutout to the top left. That's because there are 2 cameras here. First, a 13-megapixel camera. It's got different degree choices for field of view. The secondary is a 3D depth sensor, which helps with that quick face unlock amongst other things. By the way, the primary camera can do 240 FPS slow motion. I mean, I've been growing my hair and I just like doing that slow motion shot, which is why I include it. I'm just being honest, guys, admitting to it, owning up to it. Now, on top of all of this, this display has a 90 Hz refresh rate and 240 Hz touch sampling. So playing those high refresh rate games on this fast refresh panel with vivid colors and stereo speakers, it's a great experience, given Huawei is also delivered on the spec front. The Kirin 9000 is the chip here, and it's Huawei's best chip yet. But that's not really saying anything, right? Everybody wants to say best chip yet, best phone yet, but it's your latest flagship, so it has to be the best. But there is something special with the Kirin 9000. It's great, but at the same time, it's also heartbreaking. Let me explain. Usually, Huawei's Kirin chips might match their Qualcomm counterparts with CPU performance, but the GPU performance does take a hit. They usually aren't as powerful as the Adreno alternative. But this time, the Kirin 9000 outdoes the Snapdragon 865 Plus with CPU, which wasn't very surprising. We kind of did expect that. But it also matches the Snapdragon 865 Plus's Adreno 650 with GPU performance. So Huawei seems to have finally caught up with Qualcomm and might even have their noses ahead, and that's heartbreaking in a way. Being on the entity list, there are reports of Huawei not being able to source the necessary components for future chips, and for a brand that went from utterly crappy SoCs being compared with the MediaTeks to now claw their way up the ladder only to have conditions beyond their control screw up all that good work. As a tech enthusiast, I can't help but feel for Huawei. Now, Huawei's problems are not just with the future, they have problems in the now, right now, today, and that is the lack of Google services. Our smartphone lives are so entwined with Google services, even more so than we realize. Now, it becomes very hard for us not to use Google. I'm someone who uses a ton of phones, but with the Mate 40 Pro, my first question was, how do I transfer contacts here without Google's contact sync? Now guys, remember pre-Android a few years back, we've all done it many times, export contacts, import contacts, it just takes a few minutes. But even something as simple as this, it took me a while to realize, because like most of us, I've grown so accustomed to Google's way of doing things. Now Huawei, for their part, they've been investing heavily in App Gallery. It is home to a lot of apps you'd use in your day-to-day. We also have Petal Search, which pulls in APKs, and of course we can access third-party app stores, but when downloading APKs, you need to be a little more careful than what you would while using the Play Store. For what it's worth, Huawei does scan the APKs you install. The user experience, barring the lack of Google Play services, seems excellent. 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage. MUI 11 here is very responsive. Huawei offers some unique functionality too. For starters, they have something called Eyes on Display. So basically, whenever you look at the phone, you see an animation play as if the 40 Pro is responding to you, and then it displays information. Similarly, look at the phone while it's ringing, and the volume drops. And finally, the phone doesn't go to sleep as long as it has your attention. In the time I spent with this phone, Eyes on Display worked really well. Next, we have resizable windows with multi-window. This lets you change the size of the window, minimize it, have it float on screen, and even access all the different windows that you have open with a swipe from the right. Well, these are all nice to have. Most of the software breakthroughs, they have been camera-centric. The camera hardware here, it remains formidable as ever. A 50 megapixel primary sensor with RYYB instead of the regular RGB setup. This is supposed to be helping improve low-light performance. And the low-light shots, they are quite spectacular at first glance. Not surprising given the huge 1x1.28-inch sensor here. Now, given the number of features Huawei has packed into this camera, this optical setup, I'm going to have more to say in my in-depth video that I'll be following up with soon. For now, this is the primary that's paired with the f1.9 lens. The secondary is a 20 megapixel f1.8 ultra-wide. This matches the colors of the primary camera quite well and is also the one tasked with super stable video. The third sensor is 12 megapixels paired with a telephoto lens, which makes for 5x optical zoom. This lens is stabilized and go all the way up to 50x. Now 50x is pushing it. 10x hybrid seems to have very good detail, very little loss. Now this is something I really respect Huawei, unlike other brands who call 50x as hybrid zoom. Technically it is, because there's a bit of optical and a bit of digital, a lot of digital. Huawei just calls their 10x zoom as hybrid, which is almost lossless, and they call 50x as digital, so good job Huawei. Next, we have a color temperature sensor along with a laser assist for autofocus. On the battery front, the Mate 40 Pro sports a 4400 mAh battery with support for 66 watt fast charging and 50 watt wireless fast charging. So that is the Mate 40 Pro. If this phone actually had Google services, I'd most definitely consider using this as my primary. I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people. It's a very, very strong offering from Huawei. Class-leading internals, 5G, an excellent display, brilliant cameras, pretty solid software. It's just sad that the main con here is not something Huawei can address. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this unboxing. Now, you guys tell me what you think about the Mate 40 Pro. Also, do let me know if you are interested in an iPhone 12 versus Mate 40 Pro camera comparison. If you are, I'll try to get one done ASAP. So that's pretty much it. Thumbs up, thumbs down based on whatever you felt about this video. Subscribe, turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you haven't yet. And thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4E Tech, and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.